Why is the most hyped young quarterback in the country, Shadur Sanders, still standing on the sidelines? Seriously, ask yourself that. He's got the talent, the leadership. He even showed out in the preseason with poise and precision. But somehow, Bailey Zappe is QB2, and Shedeur? Nowhere to be found. According to Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski, it's just a development decision. But Stephen A. Smith? He's not buying it. In fact, he says something much bigger, much uglier is going on. And he's not alone anymore. Fans, analysts, even former players are starting to say what a lot of people are afraid to admit out loud. This might not be about performance. This might be about control. And it might go deeper than football. Let's break down what the media won't, because once you see the full picture, you'll understand why this league is under fire again. You know those moments in sports where everything just shifts? That's exactly what happened when Kevin Stefanski, head coach of the Cleveland Browns, announced that Bailey Zappe would be the team's QB2, while Shadur Sanders, the quarterback fans have been buzzing about for months, was left sitting on the bench yet again. Forget preseason hype, forget the highlight reels, this move was a cannonball into the deep end of controversy. Because to a lot of people, it wasn't just a depth chart decision. It felt like a message. Let's rewind. Coming into training camp, the conversation around Shadur Sanders wasn't light hype, it was electric. He dominated headlines as one of the most promising quarterbacks coming out of college football. He wasn't just polished, he was marketable, dynamic, and already comfortable under pressure. He looked like a player the NFL should be building around, not burying. And after all the buzz, all the talk, everything seemed to align for his moment. The stars were finally lining up. Joe Flacco, the veteran ahead of him, had been benched. There was a sudden vacancy. The door cracked open. This should have been it. The moment fans had been waiting for. The spark to a new era in Cleveland, led by a new kind of quarterback. And then, Bailey Zappe. No disrespect to Zappe, but let's be real here, he wasn't brought in as a potential future franchise leader. He was expected to be emergency depth at best, not leapfrogging a top prospect, not stealing the backup QB slot during one of the most highly scrutinized preseason evaluations in recent team history. So, why did this happen? Kevin Stefanski told reporters his reasoning was simple. He wants to protect the development of the younger players. Specifically, he said he doesn't believe in rushing rookies into high-pressure roles until they're fully ready. It sounds reasonable until you look at what else he's doing. Because at the same time, Stefanski is protecting Shedeur by keeping him off the field, he's throwing other young players directly into the spotlight. Take Quinshon Judkins, for example. He didn't even finish a full training camp. He wasn't expected to be a major contributor early on. But Stefanski has no problem plugging him directly into real reps. Live action. No leash. No long waiting period. Just opportunity. Judkins gets to learn through play. Shedeur? He needs more time. So now fans are asking, what's really going on here? Because from the outside, it feels like the rules are changing depending on who the player is. The same coaching staff that talks about developing youth is actively giving reps to players younger and less proven than Shedeur. It's like saying, we trust you enough to be here, but not enough to be on the field. And this isn't just a one-off gripe. It's not about being impatient or rushing development. It's about consistency. It's about transparency. And right now, Stefanski's story isn't adding up. The moment this news hit the airwaves, Browns fans went into shock. Social media was flooded with reactions calling the decision suspicious, confusing, even calculated. But it wasn't just fans sounding the alarm. Stephen A. Smith heard about the situation and he snapped. He went on national television and flamed Kevin Stefanski's decision, blasting it as not only questionable but outright offensive. He said what a lot of people were already thinking. This isn't about development, it's about something darker, something harder to say out loud. And whether or not you agree with that, it's impossible to ignore just how unbalanced this situation looks, especially when you step back and analyze the broader pattern across the league. Because Shedeur isn't just sitting quietly on the bench. He's being kept under it, while less experienced players jump the line. And that's not something fans forget. Make no mistake, this one decision cracked open something much bigger. You can call it favoritism. You can call it mishandled development. Some, like Stephen A., are calling it something more systemic. Whatever you call it, one thing is clear. This isn't just about X's and O's anymore. Not even close. The moment Kevin Stefanski named Bailey Zappi as QB2 over Shadur Sanders, fans didn't just get upset, they got loud. But nobody responded louder or hit harder than Stephen A. Smith. He didn't just react, he detonated the conversation. On live TV, with the same fire he's known for, Stephen A. tore into Stefanski, questioning his credibility, his judgment, and even his motives. And for once, it wasn't just about poor coaching or bad football decisions. "This ain't about football anymore," Stephen A. said. "This feels personal. This feels political. And most of all, it feels like discrimination." That wasn't a whisper. That was a warning shot. And immediately, the entire narrative around Shadur Sanders shifted. This wasn't just a case of a promising QB being patiently developed. This was starting to look like a deliberate decision to hold a young, talented, confident black quarterback back. And Stephen A. didn't stop at Stefanski's decision. He went deeper into why this kind of thing keeps happening. "Ask yourself," he said, "why wouldn't a coach put a player like Shadur Sanders out there? Why wouldn't a team lean into the momentum, the fan support, the upside? Because they're afraid of what happens if that kind of player succeeds." According to Stephen A., the real problem isn't Shedur's readiness, it's Shedur's potential. Because if he steps on that field, plays his game, and dominates, he'll immediately expose all the outdated myths the league keeps quietly clinging to. He'd prove that a loud, proud, confident black quarterback who doesn't tone it down or stay in his lane can still be the face of a franchise, and maybe even a better leader than the so-called safe picks the league usually backs with blind trust. Let that sink in. Stephen A. went so far as to say that the league, even now, fears the rise of players who don't play by the old rules. And Shadur? He definitely doesn't play by the old rules. Let's talk about what that means. Shadur Sanders isn't just talented, he's a force. He's polished, charismatic, outspoken, but always respectful. He doesn't beg for opportunity. He prepares for it. And that's what makes the whole situation feel even more deliberate. Because the NFL constantly says it wants young leaders, players who carry themselves professionally, quarterbacks with poise, skill, and presence. Shadur checks every single one of those boxes. But for some reason, he's treated like he's not ready. Meanwhile, guys like Zappi and Gabriel, who don't bring half the upside, slide right into backup roles or even leapfrog ahead entirely. That's the burden black quarterbacks have carried for decades. No matter how ready you are, no matter how good you are, you're always not quite the right fit. And what made Stephen A.'s remarks so impactful was that this time, he didn't frame it as a football debate. He framed it as a pattern that fans, players, and former athletes have seen repeat again and again. You show confidence as a white QB, you're a leader. You do the exact same thing as a black QB, you're cocky, immature, or not coachable. Stephen A. said it plain. The system isn't broken, this is the system. And in that one moment, he connected Shadur's story to every other young black quarterback who's been told to wait their turn while someone less talented got the chance of a lifetime. That commentary lit a fire. The headlines changed. Sports talk shows pivoted. Podcasts picked it up. Social media exploded. Fans who once thought this was just another NFL depth chart debate suddenly saw it for what it might really be. A player being intentionally boxed out because he represents something the league still doesn't fully embrace. Unapologetic black excellence. And that's when people started asking the question that still hasn't been answered. If this is really about football performance, why does the decision feel so political? So if Shadur Sanders isn't QB2, who is the Browns coaching staff actually betting on long-term? That's where this story gets even more interesting and even more telling. Behind the scenes, multiple reports suggest that Kevin Stefanski has his eyes locked on Dillon Gabriel. And for those familiar with Gabriel's game, the first reaction is usually some version of, him? Really? Sure, Gabriel had a solid college career. He's accurate, he's composed. Definitely a decent pick as developmental backup material. But compare him to Shadur Sanders, and the difference is striking. Sanders has the stronger arm, the more intense field presence, and arguably the better leadership aura. His vision, his understanding of modern offensive schemes, and his ability to extend plays under pressure? NFL ready. He's not just built for potential, he's built to compete now. And yet, Dillon Gabriel is getting more nods from the coaching staff than a player who checks nearly every box more impressively. Why? That's the burning question. And more people are starting to say the quiet part out loud. It might not be a matter of talent at all. It might be a matter of comfort. Let's call it what it is. The NFL loves a golden boy. The clean-cut, soft-spoken, all-smiles quarterback who knows how to play the game, both on and off the field. No risks, no controversy. Keep the ego in check. Say what you're told. Be marketable, not memorable. And from the outside looking in, Dillon Gabriel fits that profile like a glove. Now compare that to Shadur Sanders. Doubters walks with confidence, dresses with unapologetic flair. RET speaks with purpose. Doesn't tone down his personality for anyone. He's not playing the part, he is the part. But the NFL still struggles with any quarterback who operates outside of the traditional mold, especially when that quarterback is black. Stephen A. Smith made this exact point during his fiery segment. Shadur doesn't need the league's approval to be who he is. And that makes them uncomfortable. It's not just about who's good. It's about who makes the people in power feel in control. And for decades, NFL decision-making has subconsciously, and sometimes blatantly, favored quarterbacks that reflect that control. If you don't fit the mold, you get labeled. If you don't follow the system, you get sidelined. If you don't shrink yourself down, you become too much to handle. And it's not just Shedeur experiencing this. We've seen it with Cam Newton, with Lamar Jackson early in his career, even with a young Russell Wilson before he learned to filter his personality in those early pressers. The pattern is clear. Play great? That's not enough. You also have to act the way we're comfortable with. And if you shine too brightly, you become a threat. Now, let's look at what Gabriel actually offers in comparison. Yes, he's safe. He's disciplined. He'll run the playbook as written. But will he win games when things go off script? Will he take over the locker room? Will teammates rally behind his voice when the pressure is on? That's what separates a backup from a franchise quarterback. And if you've seen Sanders' college film, if you watched his preseason flashes, if you've listened to how veterans in practices talk about his poise, you know Shedeur isn't just a guy in line for a shot. He's a future leader being actively held back. Fans are calling it out. Why are we pretending Dillon Gabriel has the same upside? Why does it feel like they're forcing him into a storyline that was written before camp even started? And the answer might sting. Because this league still hasn't figured out how to handle a black quarterback with a voice. They want you grateful, not great. Silent, not swaggering. Obedient, not outspoken. And Shedeur breaks all of those rules simply by being himself. So when Stefanski looks at Gabriel and says, "I trust this guy more right now," what exactly is he trusting? The system that's comfortable for him? Or the player who's actually ready to lead? Because if we're talking talent, if we're talking upside, Shadur Sanders already won this race the minute camp started. He just wasn't given the baton. When controversy hits an NFL team, the first place people look is outside the locker room headlines, media takes, fan reactions. But the real story? It lives inside that building, inside the locker room. And right now, the locker room in Cleveland is more than just quiet. It's tense. Word from insiders around the Browns facility is that people are walking on eggshells. Players are talking less. Meetings feel different. The mood is off. And it's not hard to guess why. Everyone knows what's going on with Shadur Sanders isn't sitting right. Even guys who won't speak into a microphone are whispering in private. According to reports close to the team, some veterans have quietly expressed support for Shedeur, saying things like, "He's got it," and "He's more prepared than they're letting on." Quarterbacks, position players, even guys on defense see the potential. They've seen it in practice. They've felt it in his energy. They know when someone has the juice. But none of them are saying it in public. And honestly, can you blame them? Because in the NFL, truth-telling can cost you your career. The NFL loves to market itself as a brotherhood. They roll out slogans like "Inspire Change" or "It Takes All of Us." But inside that building, players will tell you, there are just some things you don't talk about, especially when it comes to race, favoritism, or coaching politics. The locker room might be sacred, but it's also heavily surveilled. Coaches listen, team executives monitor morale, media, staff watch everything. You say the wrong thing at the wrong time? That's money gone, playing time gone, team trust gone. And for players on the bubble or even mid-tier veterans, speaking out can mean being shipped off or quietly blackballed. We've seen it happen, again and again. One NFL vet once said, Every locker room has quiet racism. It's not loud anymore. It's systemic. It's built into the way decisions are made. Players feel it. They see the patterns. But most keep quiet because they know what happens when you speak up. You get labeled the problem. Uncoachable. A distraction. Even when you're naming the truth. And that puts every other player in a terrible position. They want to back Shedeur publicly. They see what's happening. But they also know the unwritten rule. You protect yours or you protect your spot. Sometimes it's survival or solidarity, and survival usually wins. Nobody wants to be the next guy on the chopping block because they made a comment that rubbed a coach or coordinator the wrong way. So instead, there's quiet tension, subtle looks, quick conversations between reps. Veterans who used to be loud in meetings are now more reserved. Voices are low, eyes are sharp, trust is fragile. You don't need a press release to know people are simmering. You just have to watch the body language. And then there's Shedeur himself. He's not complaining, he's not creating problems. He's keeping his head down, shoulders square, and energy consistent. But make no mistake, he feels it. He knows he's good enough. He knows the film room respects him. He knows the practice reps tell the real story, not the press releases. But instead of lashing out, he's choosing composure. And that's exactly what makes his silence so powerful. He's not giving the organization any excuse to paint him as arrogant, entitled, or difficult, labels that have unfairly been used to sideline talented Black athletes before. He's letting the system expose itself. As the locker room slowly fractures under the weight of bad decisions and unspoken frustration, one thing is becoming clear. This isn't just hurting Shedeur, it's creating distrust across the roster. Because when a team sees talent getting benched for reasons that don't make football sense, everyone starts asking the same hard question. If it happened to him, could it happen to me? That's when a football team stops functioning as a unit. That's when silence becomes survival. That's when a franchise starts to crumble from within. Eventually, someone's going to break the silence. Someone inside will go on the record, and when they do, that's when the full story will explode. Until then, the Browns' locker room is stuck in a quiet storm, with Shadur Sanders at the center staying calm, staying ready, and waiting for the moment. They can't ignore him any longer. The situation surrounding Shadur Sanders might feel shocking on the surface, but in reality, this is nothing new. Not to Black quarterbacks. Not to players who've been forced to navigate a system that wasn't designed with them in mind. Because if you zoom out from Cleveland's drama for just a second, you start to see something that's way bigger than one team's depth chart. You start to see a long, uncomfortable pattern, one the NFL keeps trying to polish over with PR campaigns, slogans, and commercial sound bites. But the truth? Black quarterbacks have always had to prove more, wait longer, and speak softer, and even then, it's never a guarantee they'll get a fair shot. Think about this. When a young white quarterback enters the league full of swagger, confidence, and fire, he's called a leader, a franchise guy, a future face of the league. But when a young Black quarterback brings that same energy, the words change. Now he's cocky, a distraction. He needs to humble himself and prove he can lead. Same confidence, different consequences. It's a quiet double standard, but everyone sees it even if no one in the front office wants to admit it. Remember Cam Newton? Former MVP, Super Bowl appearance, charismatic, flashy, talented. But what did the media focus on? His attitude? His celebrations? His wardrobe? Critics didn't just analyze his game, they questioned his character. Meanwhile, quarterbacks with less winning records, fewer accomplishments, and weaker leadership presence were treated with much more patience and grace just because they fit the mold. And that mold? It doesn't leave room for individuality, especially when it doesn't come with the right image. Then there's Lamar Jackson, possibly the most electric quarterback of his generation, MVP in his second season. Game-changing athleticism. Despite that, the Ravens hesitated. They slow-played his contract extension. Media narratives questioned his health, his mechanics, even his worth as a pocket passer. They moved the goalposts again and again, because when a Black quarterback doesn't only dominate, they expect him to also be quieter, humbler, grateful. Absurd, right? And yet it keeps happening. Even Russell Wilson, who walked the straightest PR line you could imagine in his early years, had to sand off his edges, avoid controversy, and basically code switch into America's quarterback just to gain full league acceptance. And now here we are, in 2025. And somehow, a quarterback like Shadur Sanders, polished, composed, laser-focused, is still being told he's not ready. Despite the tape, despite the poise, despite showing leadership qualities in practice that teammates have already praised. It's history, repeating in real time. Stephen A. Smith said it best. This isn't about play calling. It's not about performance. It's about control. Because when a black quarterback plays the way they want but talks the way he feels, he becomes a threat, not a teammate. And the NFL? It's been protecting the system that fears that kind of leadership for decades. Not because it's loud, but because it's powerful. And power in the wrong hands, hands that don't fit the traditional image of the QB role, still terrifies decision-makers in certain rooms. And let's not kid ourselves. The league knows this is a problem. They just don't like dealing with it. Remember the Super Bowl? Not long ago, the NFL went out of its way to remove any reference to race, justice, equality, or social reform during their biggest global broadcast. Not because those topics weren't relevant, but because billion-dollar stakeholders didn't want to make it political. Do you see the contradiction? They want black talent. They want black excellence. They just don't want black voice or black identity unless it's tightly controlled, pre-approved, and wrapped in applause lines. Anything outside that? Too risky. Too disruptive. Too unmarketable. That's why so many black players choose silence. Not because they're okay with it, but because they have no choice. One misstep, one interview taken out of context, one controversial take, and their career could stall. Not because of ability, but because of perception. And that brings us right back to Shadur Sanders, a young man who's doing everything right. Succeeding quietly, practicing hard, keeping his fire contained. But no matter how much work he puts in, it feels like he's being held to a standard that even perfection doesn't guarantee he'll pass. Ask yourself, would Shadur be benched this long if he didn't carry so much light, so much confidence, so much voice? Or is that exactly why he's being benched? Because once he's in the spotlight, the league won't be able to box him in ever again. Here's what's crazy. In an era where athletes clap back in real time on Twitter, on podcasts, through cryptic Instagram stories, or fiery pressers, Shadur Sanders hasn't said a word. No rants. No interviews. No shade. Just silence. But here's what most people miss. That silence? It's not weakness. It's strategy. And it's working. Because while Kevin Stefanski fumbles his way through vague explanations, while the Browns' front office spins excuses about development timelines, and while media heads go in circles trying to explain away the favoritism, Shedeur is getting louder by staying silent. He's not giving the media anything to twist. He's not handing critics a single quote to misinterpret. And more importantly, he's leaving every move up to the people fumbling the bag. Make no mistake, this isn't a rookie afraid to speak up. This is a calculated, disciplined move by someone who knows exactly what's happening around him. You think Shedeur doesn't see the double standard? Of course he does. You think he doesn't hear the whispers? The locker room tension? The online blowback? He hears all of it. He just doesn't need to react, because his value isn't in making noise. It's in being unmistakably ready the second they can't ignore him anymore. Let's be real. If Shadur had lashed out, dropped cryptic messages, or showed frustration publicly, what would have happened? You already know. They'd label him entitled, say he doesn't respect the system. Media would ask if he's too emotionally fragile for the QB position. Some front office executives might even whisper that he's not a team-first guy. But by saying nothing, he's turned all that fire back onto the organization. Now Stefanski is the one under pressure. Now the Browns are the ones being scrutinized. And every game that goes by without Shedeur even being given a shot? The silence gets heavier, the questions get sharper, the headlines get bolder. It's brilliant. This quiet strength isn't accidental, it runs in the family. Shadur grew up watching Deion Sanders, one of the most confident, outspoken athletes of all time. But even Deion knew when to talk and when to let the results do it for him. Shedeur has clearly taken his father's charisma and flipped it into a different kind of power, quiet, intentional, undeniable. He's not trying to prove himself by sounding the alarm. He's letting the league hang itself with its own excuses. And every week they bench him while someone else struggles under center, that rope gets a little shorter. Even inside the locker room, it's starting to echo. Sources say teammates are gaining respect for how Shedeur's handling the situation, not because he's backing down, but because he won't give the system a target to shoot at. He takes reps seriously. He asks meaningful questions in meetings. He encourages guys around him without stepping on any toes. He's pulling weight without being allowed to lead. And that's what separates good players from real leaders. He's not just preparing for a chance, he's earning trust in the shadows. And trust? That's the one thing coaches can't manufacture or manipulate. Fans see it. Players feel it. Even some execs are starting to sweat. Because when the tide turns and someone finally makes the call to give Shedeur real snaps, he's going to have the locker room behind him before the first throw. And they'll all know exactly why. That's why silence isn't weakness, it's pressure. And every second the Browns stall, the pressure builds. Not just on Stefanski, not just on the QB room, but on the entire organization. Because silence works when talent is undeniable. Shadur's keeping control of the one thing the system can't take from him. His poise, his presence, his preparation. And when the opportunity finally comes, and let's be honest, it will, he's going to be more than ready. He's going to be unstoppable, because when you have the skill and the discipline to wait out the storm, you're not just a quarterback. You're a problem. They won't be able to bench again. By now, it's obvious the Shadur Sanders situation isn't just a Cleveland Browns problem. It's not just a personal issue. It's not just a coaching difference or a clash of development strategies. This is the NFL exposed. What's happening in Cleveland is a mirror one the league has been avoiding for decades, and one that's suddenly impossible to look away from. And the reflection? It shows a system still stuck in a mindset that feels more like 1,985 than 2,025. It shows how the league promotes diversity in ads and halftime shows, but often resists it on the depth chart. It shows that while fans want fresh energy, bold leadership, and new voices, many front offices still cling to comfort, control, and familiarity. And quarterbacks like Shadur Sanders? They don't fit safely inside that box. Quietly, the NFL has become one of the last major leagues in America where black leadership, at its most visible level, the quarterback position, is still treated differently. Yes, we've seen black QBs win MVPs. We've seen them lead teams to Super Bowls. We've seen undeniable greatness. But how many had to be perfect, stay quiet, act humble, and avoid friction just to hold their spot? How many were only accepted after they toned themselves down to fit someone else's idea of leadership? And how many more like Shadur are trapped behind excuses, procedural delays, or coaching philosophies that never seem to apply to their white counterparts? It's no longer subtle. It's barely even hidden. Across the league, players feel it. Fans see it. And the media, at least some of them, are finally starting to say so out loud. Stephen A. Smith opening fire was a catalyst. It gave voice to countless unspoken conversations happening inside locker rooms, group chats, and behind closed doors for years. This isn't about QB2, he said. This is about access. This is about opportunity. This is about who gets to lead and who gets blocked before they even start. That message hit different, because it wasn't just directed at Stefanski. It was pointed at the entire infrastructure of the NFL. And suddenly, a lot of people who considered this just sports talk felt something deeper. Something structural. And now, the league is at a decision point. Does it continue trying to dress up the problem with slogans like "End Racism" painted on the end zones, while silently letting team culture reinforce the same power dynamics it's had since the 1,960 seconds? Or does it finally confront a question that has echoed for years? Why is black excellence celebrated only when it's safe? Why does a player like Shadur Sanders get told to wait his turn, while lesser resumes walk onto fields with zero resistance? Why does the face of the franchise still have to look the part? And why does that part almost always look the same? The NFL, for all its pageantry, is still bound by an old playbook. Not the one you watch every Sunday. The one most fans forget exists. The one where outspoken players are punished. The one where confident black QBs are told to lead differently. The one where silence equals self-preservation, not strategy. And right now, the league is running out of time to rewrite it. Because the culture of football is changing faster than the power structures controlling it. Players aren't waiting around anymore. Social media has created accountability they never had before. Fans are smarter, louder, more connected. Coaches can't hide behind fake stats or manufactured narratives forever. And the Browns? They're feeling that heat in real time. This controversy around Shadur Sanders didn't just make national headlines. It's igniting a bigger movement, a call for transparency, for honesty in talent evaluation, and for a future where QB1 isn't about comfort, it's about capability. Because when players like Shedeur are benched, underestimated, and downplayed, it doesn't just hurt their careers, it holds the entire league back. It sends a message to every young black quarterback watching from their high school field, their college dorm, or the bench of another NFL roster. No matter how good you are, you'd better learn how to shrink. And people are tired of watching talent be told to shrink. They're finally saying, why not let them lead? There's something dangerous about thinking you can control a storm that's already begun. Right now, the Cleveland Browns are sitting on a ticking time bomb, and Shadur Sanders is the match they refuse to light. The tension, it's not rising anymore. It's boiling. Inside the locker room, behind press conference smiles, and across every sports platform in the country, fans can feel it. Something has shifted. Coaches know it. Journalists know it. Even Browns executives are starting to whisper that the pressure sitting on Kevin Stefanski's shoulders isn't just about game strategy anymore, it's about his legacy. Because this isn't just a quarterback drama, it's turning into an organizational crisis. Every single day Shadur stays sidelined, his value doesn't drop, it grows. Louder, sharper, stronger. Every snap he doesn't take becomes a headline. Every game he's overlooked becomes another round of public scrutiny. Every quote from Stefanski sounds thinner, weaker, less believable. It's not just fans questioning decisions now, it's inside sources, teammates, analysts, even executives reportedly growing tired of the optics, the inconsistencies, the contradictions. Remember, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The NFL is watching. Black players across the league are watching. Front offices in other cities are watching, wondering quietly, why are the Browns so afraid to give this kid a chance? Because Shadur Sanders isn't just a backup quarterback anymore, he's become a symbol. A symbol of modern black leadership being tested by a league that still doesn't fully trust it unless it fits old molds. So what happens if they keep ignoring the pressure? What happens if Stefanski digs in his heels and refuses to let Shedeur prove himself? Best case, the organization spirals into more public criticism. Worst case, they lose everything. TE, the locker room divides permanently. RE, rising tensions erode trust in leadership. Potential stars start looking elsewhere. TA, and fans hyper-aware, vocal, and emotionally invested begin calling for more than just lineup changes. They'll want the coaching staff gone, because this isn't just about a game anymore. It's about justice, credibility, and the future of talent development in a league under the microscope. And here's the reality. You can only hide behind "we're protecting his growth" for so long, especially when fans have seen the tape. Shadur showed poise in the preseason. He showed calm under pressure. He showed leadership when the spotlight was dim, and he's still showing it quietly every day. So why keep pretending he's not ready? Why keep forcing the fan base to act like they don't see what's really going on? Because people do see it. All of it. And the longer it gets ignored, the higher the cost becomes. This is why the Browns are at a breaking point. They're staring down a decision that no longer lives, only between the lines of the playbook. If they finally elevate Shadur, they don't just win a few games. They start the process of course correction. They start to rebuild trust both internally and with a fan base that's been riding the emotional roller coaster for years. They admit what was obvious months ago, that this wasn't about readiness, it was about resistance. And that resistance nearly ate the whole organization alive. But if they do nothing, if they stay the course, push the same generic statements, and pretend nothing's wrong, they lose. Not just Shedeur, not just games. They lose the faith of future players. They lose the respect of fans who finally saw through the PR machine. They lose the chance to be part of the change that's already happening, with or without them. And worst of all, they prove every critic right. It's now or never. Either they let the best talent lead, or they keep clinging to outdated hierarchies that are crumbling, one ignored quarterback at a time. Shadur Sanders isn't just waiting for an opportunity. He is the opportunity. And the question the Browns must answer before this storm swallows them whole is brutally simple. When are you finally going to let him play? The story of Shadur Sanders isn't just a depth chart debate. It's not just about Bailey Zappi or Kevin Stefanski's coaching philosophy. It's about a system that's been quietly telling the same people the same thing for generations. You can be talented but not too bold. You can be poised but not outspoken. You can sit at the table but only if you lower your voice. And here's where everything hits harder than football ever could. Shadur Sanders represents every player who's done everything right, followed the rules, played the game, stayed patient, worked harder, stayed silent, and somehow still got passed over. Because the truth? This league still struggles to trust black quarterbacks who don't shrink. When Shedeur walked into the NFL, he brought more than just skills. He brought a presence. And instead of embracing that, the Browns are stalling, spinning, and sidestepping the growing reality. You can't ghost a player like Shadur Sanders forever. Eventually, the silence becomes too loud, too obvious, too costly. And now, the one thing the Browns hope to avoid the most is already here. The controversy. The critics, the uncomfortable questions, and the spotlight? It's no longer on Shedeur. It's on them, and it's not moving. Fans are no longer asking, when will Shedeur play? They're asking, why is this still happening in 2025? And if the Browns and the league as a whole think this will blow over like just another sports story, they're dead wrong. Because this movement isn't about football politics anymore. It's about patterns. It's about representation. It's about accountability. And honestly, it's about time. There's a reason you're still watching this video right now. Because deep down, you know this is bigger than one team making a bad call. This is about a system that's been dodging change, refusing growth, and gatekeeping opportunity while pretending progress has already been made. But change isn't a slogan on a sideline. It's not in a Nike commercial. It's not in a 30-second feel-good promo. It starts by giving leadership opportunities to the people who've earned them. It starts by recognizing that swagger, style, and self-belief aren't threats, they're assets. And it starts by finally letting Shadur Sanders play. So, what do you think? Now, here's where we pass the mic to you, the viewers. Let's make this a conversation the league can't ignore anymore. Drop your comment below. Do you believe this is just coaching strategy? Or something deeper? Is this about readiness, or is this about resistance to change? And most importantly, what should the Browns do next? Because it's clear now Shedur's situation is holding up a mirror to the entire NFL, and that reflection says more about the league than the league wants to admit. If this video struck a nerve, if you're tired of seeing elite talent buried under politics and double standards, then don't stay silent. Smash that like button. Hit subscribe for real sports commentary that doesn't dance around the truth. And share this with someone who needs to see it, especially if they still think Shedeur isn't ready. Because when players are told to wait, they wait. But when fans unite around the truth, that's when change happens faster than any front office dares to admit. Whether the Browns are ready or not, Shadur Sanders' moment is coming. It always does.